Yeah, man, people ask that question all the time, man. But look, I was born into this, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I bleed Berkeley and gold. I bleed DC. This is my home. This is my squad. Regardless of all the name changes and all that, man, it's Berkeley and gold for me. It's DC for me. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm here, man. I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere. Do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.
Welcome back to Redzone In the Lab podcast. I am Deuce, and joining me today, NFL insider, Washington Commanders insider, the Great Lake Lewis. How are you doing today, sir?
What's going on, my friend? Good to see you, man.
I'm doing good today, man. Just enjoying some football, just kind of sitting back, just it's all about football. And this is a great feeling for it to all be all about football. How about with you guys? It has to be great.
It is, man. I mean, this is probably the first off season. It's not even the off season anymore. The season that started. I mean, basically March 12th. I mean, everything got real. But I think this is like the first time for me personally. This is my 16th season covering the NFL, covering the Commanders. And this is the first time that, like, even back a couple weeks ago when I was in Indianapolis for the Combine, people were coming up and showing love. Like, it's a different vibe, when you cover this team. I can only imagine the guys that play for it. It's a lot of love going around, and a lot of people have a lot of respect for what was done last year, and they think it's sustainable. So, yeah, man, I'm enjoying it right now. My podcast is really picked up this off season. People want more information. Normally they don't want anything, in the off season, but now it's like, what's up, what's going on? Let us know, keep us informed. So it's good times right now for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even as a fan, like, you can walk around with the gear on and you see gear everywhere. Like, when I can walk around DC Lake and I see, like, all the guys in front of the liquor store and in front of the bus stop, they all got their Doug Williams shirt jersey on, and you see the Clinton Porter's jersey shirt, like they dug it up out of their closet. It's a good feeling around DC for sure.
Absolutely. And you see it everywhere. I saw it in Indianapolis. I've been a couple other places. I was telling someone recently, when we had the bye, after the Philly game last year, myself and my better half, we went to St. Thomas, and we were in getting a ride to our place where we were staying. And she was even surprised. She's like, the person that was driving us was like, I think she had a Commanders thing on. I don't really wear gear as media. You're not really supposed to. But with that said, she had something on, and the driver was like, "Man, the Commanders. I'm a fan. I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan." And I'm like, "We're in St. Thomas hearing this." So
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, man. It's running wild. They just got to run it back and back it up. That's all.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Let's get into that. I kind of add we'll talk about the big trades that they made. And I want to include Marshawn in this off season of trade. I think it's fair. And just kind of talk about how each one of those trades is going to impact this team moving forward with Marshawn, Debo, and of course Laramie Tunsil.
I'm so glad you mentioned Marshawn because unfortunately, there are some fans out there that kind of don't see the big picture. And, I started seeing all this rhetoric out there that Marshawn was a bust and that was a terrible trade. And I'm like, on what planet are you living on if you think that? I mean, the guy was playing really on one leg. He was playing in a new system. I didn't know probably 3 or 4 guys' names on the team, let alone, in his position group. So obviously I say all this because it takes time to understand something when you're coming in off the street cold and you're coming in nursing a hamstring injury. So I think if you looked at the games that he played in, his presence was felt on the field, whether he got beat or not in certain, situations. Going back to the NFC Championship game, I know that AJ Brown knows that Marshawn Lattimore plays cornerback for the Washington
That's right.
Commanders, and he's going to know that every time they play. I mean, there was a toughness that we just hadn't seen before like that.
It's true.
So those are the things that a full off season of prep, getting right. He's going to be fine. He's going to be that Pro Bowl corner that they traded for. And then I think if you look at Laramie Tunsil, I love what I heard from him yesterday. He was in a Zoom conference and literally was saying that his best football is ahead of him. He talked about the penalties and all the things that he knows he needs to get better at. So normally when you hear a 5-time Pro Bowler say those things, you sometimes you don't hear them say those things.
Exactly.
So he understands the what the assignment is, and that's coming to Washington to win a Super Bowl. And I don't know if he felt like, I mean, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but I'm not sure if he felt like that was a legitimate opportunity in Houston, because look at who Houston would have to go through in the AFC, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, and maybe now even someone like the Chargers or Broncos are coming up. So it would have been a tough ride, So I think for him, knowing that he's got an electric quarterback, take nothing away from CJ Stroud, but Jaden Daniels is one of one. He's
Right.
a unicorn at that position. I really believe that. So you pair these guys up. You got your left tackle, the ultimate protector for Jaden, and now you bring in a Debo Samuel, who's
Which I
gonna
know
make.
you're high on.
Oh man, I mean, one thing that you saw with this team that perhaps they lacked a little of last year, maybe outside of Terry on offense, was they needed more playmakers, and they also needed more toughness, more grit. And I think that, a guy like Debo comes in, and let's face it, if you don't know, Debo doesn't care for the Eagles.
That's
And,
right.
and this move was made with that in mind, like you're bringing in a dog, a guy that's going to give this offense some attitude to go along with some skill. You can move them all over the field, and it just makes everything better. And no offense to Brock Purdy or anyone that's, Jimmy Garoppolo, anyone that's ever thrown the football to Debo Samuel, they're no Jaden Daniel
That's right.
and Jaden Daniels. And I think that that's going to make Debo play even harder. So these guys that were traded know what's expected of them, and I think they want to show the world what they can add to a team that was close. But maybe they feel like they're the guys that's going to put Washington over the hump, and that is to beat a Philadelphia. So it's going to be epic to see the chase and the battles and all those things. But yeah, I think Washington, traded for three dogs for sure.
And when it comes to Laramie Tunsil, like, and what you mentioned about how he took ownership for the penalties, because here I am out here researching when the penalties happened,
Hmm.
making up all of these excuses of why he had the penalties, when he had the penalties, and here he goes to say, "I need to do better."
Yeah, he said they were unacceptable. Those were his exact words. And I will say this, not to coddle the dude or make excuses for him, but I know that in Bobby Slowick, he was their offensive coordinator for a good chunk of the time there, at least since CJ was there, and he's no longer there now as far as the offensive coordinator. When you get rid of an offensive coordinator, that tells you a little something right there. And the other thing I will say this is that they didn't play with a lot of tempo on Texans offense. That's something that Washington absolutely plays
Mhm.
with. And I think that when you have, a big man like that, not having to worry about getting set and waiting for the snap and things like that. And then also, take nothing away from CJ, because I think he's a dynamic young quarterback. But
Mhm.
again, he doesn't have the legs that Jaden
That's right.
does. And so now, and that's something that Laramie said yesterday. He did. He said that, he thinks that a guy like Jaden Daniels is going to make his game better because, he does so many different things, and how smart he is as well. So I'm excited about that. I mean, clearly this is the best left tackle that the team will have had since Trent Williams. And, they've missed Trent over the years. So now they get a guy that maybe isn't as good as Trent, overall, but he's not that far behind.
Yeah.
Trent's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Laramie Tunsil's career right now is a Hall of Fame trajectory. So Washington's in good hands.
Yeah, I agree, and I am absolutely excited about. I think he's one of the best left tackles in the league. He can hold his own. You don't really have to worry about the chipping. So I can just imagine how Cliff feels right now by having a perennial tackle out there.
Yeah, he had something to do with that. I mean, and the other thing too, I think when you look at it from a sheer, business standpoint, they're bringing in one of the best left tackles in football, and they're paying him 21 million a year. That's a steal because the free agent market this year was for tackles getting 18, 19. I think one got 20, and they're not half the player of Laramie Tunsil.
That's right.
So, and some
That's
of them
right.
were almost the same age too. So,
Yep.
for Washington to be able to do that and get him and have to pay him 21 million, and that's a year over the next 2 years. I'm telling you, man, that's a premium position. That is if you have the most five important positions in all of football, Washington's got four of them covered. I mean, they've got their quarterback, they've got a star receiver, they've got their left tackle, and they've got a cornerback. And
Hmm.
now we already know what that fifth one is. It has to be an edge rusher, and that's something that I still think they're in play to maybe make a big move in a free agent. But I also know for sure that they can address that in the draft as well.
Yeah, because you spent some time at the combine and was doing reports from there. So it's so much to talk about the combine. I might have to get you back a little closer to the combine. Like just throwing that out there.
That's fine.
As far as free agency gains and losses,
Hmm.
of course we lose a hometown favorite in John Allen. Chin, which me specifically thought that was a wrap. He definitely was going to be here for at least the next 3 years. They were going to resign him. Of course, De'Ami Brown, and there's such mixed feelings with De'Ami Brown, but also Corn Lucas. I think that was a big part of this team also. But then we have some gains. We have Kinlaw, Dietrich Wise, we have Will Hurst, Jonathan Jones, and those guys. How do you weigh the gains and losses?
Listen, man. I mean, and this isn't to sugarcoat anything, but Jeremy Chin was playing some of his best football of his career in Washington last year, and he was the runner-up to Chase Young for NFL
Yep,
Rookie
yep.
of the Year on defense. Back in 2020.
Mhm.
So when you think of he was playing that kind of football last year for Washington. Yeah, it definitely can be a loss, but this is the thing that I will also preface that by saying he struggled in coverage. That wasn't his game. He was a in the box safety, and Washington hasn't really had that free safety that's had
That's right.
range. They had sideline to sideline coverage. They had ball tracking ability, and also could come up and blow you up as far as hitting you. Well, guess what? All of the above are Will Harris.
Yeah.
So, and I legitimately mean that he played his best football of his
Yeah.
career last year in New Orleans. So, and then you have to also think of familiarity. He's got history, obviously, being familiar with Marshawn. So those are little
Hmm.
things that help guys. If Marshawn knows the guy behind him, he can fully trust him to have his back. Those are little things that go a long way. So, I think everything that Adam Peters has done this offseason, it makes absolute sense. It's logical, it's smart. It shows that because they have money, they're not going to just get rid of it and throw it around. That I always say, my father used to tell me the saying that rich people don't become wealthy by spending money.
That's right.
So Washington understands that they've got to build through the draft, and that's the blueprint that the Eagles have done really well. That's the blueprint that a lot of the really good teams, the Ravens, are known to draft really well. So I think Washington sees those things and they want to emulate that And yeah, every now and then go out and get a free agent of need, but it doesn't have to be the most expensive and the best free agent of that position group because there's several players. Remember, every player in the NFL is good. They just have to be
Exactly. Yeah.
in the right place at the right time. They have to be coached by the right coaches at the right time. And Washington's banking on their history, their brief history together, but they're banking on that history of culture, that history of, sustaining something and continuity. And the great thing is all of their coaches are back, every last one of them. That's a big, big plus for a football team that's trying to ascend.
Yeah, I agree. When you talk about like Adam and how they're approaching this year's free agency, is there like from last year, their last year approach, this year approach, is there similarities? Are there differences? How do you look at the way they're approaching both off season?
There are some similarities and there are some differences. The differences. Let's start with the differences. That's probably the nays for some people. The
Right.
the, the difference is that last year they were bringing in younger guys, younger free agents, and I know people say, "Wait a minute," Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz. That specific. Those two guys were
Mhm.
specific guys that they brought in, and they brought them in for culture. They brought them in for professionalism. They brought them in for instant results on the field and knowing what it is to be a pro. Those guys could show the offense and the defensive side of the ball how it's done, and it worked to perfection. And they played their tails off. But the rest of the guys, when you look at like the Frankie Louvus and the Dorrance Armstrongs of the world, a lot of these guys that were brought in were at like 27 years old. And they
Yeah.
were guys that were having success on the teams they came from. Some of it, albeit in limited roles. So you just wanted to see them be kind of like centerpiece players, and
Mhm.
if they could do it, they would get paid accordingly. Well, that's the other thing, which is similar. Adam Peters has gone out and proved that, you can give certain guys 1 year deals or 2 year deals. Prove it to me deals is what you call it. Because if you believe that you are who you think you are as a player, you'll go out and prove it. And you have every opportunity to do it in Washington for a winning team now. So I think that that's their blueprint for right now because I think fans have to be a little bit more forward thinking because let's face it, in 3 years, not even 3 years, in 2 more years, they're going to have to pay Jaden Daniels more than likely a record number, as far as a contract. Because
Ooh.
if he is playing the way we think he will be playing, if
Mhm.
he's potentially in a Super Bowl or have won one over the next 2 years, listen, Washington's in a situation they've never been in before where they have a franchise player,
That's right.
not a really good player, not a player that was good on someone else's team, and now you have him. I'm talking about your own handpicked, drafted, groomed, developed, starred player, and that's what Jaden's going to be for this franchise. So I think Adam Peters is already thinking ahead as far as having the money, having everything in play to be able to pay this guy and not have any kind of drag out contract situations. Nothing like Joe Burrow went through in
Right.
Cincinnati, none or even Lamar for that matter in
Mhm.
Baltimore briefly. They want to make sure this guy stays happy all the time, and if you're going to be going out now and spending all your money, you're going to have other guys you're going to have to pay. And I think their thinking also is their draft picks. Look at their
Yeah.
draft class from last year. All of those guys pretty much produce except the back end, and those guys are expected to do a lot.
Mhm.
As far as Hampton and those guys this year, and John Baptiste, they're expected to do a lot this year. So these are all guys, Mikey Sanders, Brandon Coleman, Ben Sennett. These are guys that in a couple years you're going to have to pay. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of these 1 and 2 year deals, prove it deals.
When it comes to youth development, just knowing where Adam comes from, just what we know, like he's really big on youth development, and I'm talking about like the Senate, Luke
Hmm.
McCaffrey, Hampton McGee, all of those guys. Does that play a part and going into free agency and going into the draft? Because fans can be like, we can be a little microwave society, like we need to see it now, But as far as Adam and his team, are they going to say, "Hey, look, we have a guy right here that we just needed to develop. We don't need
Hmm.
to overload here." Is that the way that they're approaching it?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because that's something that fans just don't see. And when we try to tell them in the media, they think that, Adam called me and paid me to say certain things. No, man. I mean, I know what I see. I know what you saw at practice. I know, the vibe in the locker room. I know what some veteran guys have said about some young guys that didn't get starring opportunities last year. A guy like Tyler Owens at safety.
Yeah.
They absolutely love that kid, and they think that he's got a really good chance to be a big time player in the league. And I said this last year. He kind of gives me Sean Taylor
Oh,
vibes,
here we go.
and
Here we go.
I'm not saying he's going to be the
Yeah,
impact
exactly.
player of Sean. I just mean as far as his stature, his body size, and you remember in the preseason last year he was causing
Hmm.
turnovers left and right,
Hmm.
but he had the injury bug this year. That happens to young players sometimes where the game changes. So now getting his body right and things like that, he's going to have an opportunity to get on the field this year, not in a special teams role, but more of a, being on the field and being in different packages because he's a good football player. So, but because he's not a flashy name and a splash player, I do want to preface this always. I tell people this: not every free agent left on their own accord the team that they left.
Yeah.
Probably 75% of free agents were let go in
Yeah.
some capacity. So, and what I mean by that is they signed lucrative deals somewhere else. Well, guess what? The team that they left wasn't going to give them that money.
Right.
And
Right.
all you have to do is look at the three guys that left Washington.
Hmm.
They were not, De'Ami Brown under no circumstances was going to get paid $10 million.
Ah, thank you.
There's no way that
No way.
Washington was going to do that. Jacksonville, I'm not sure what they were doing, but that's their
Well, they
prerogative
called
now.
him a dog today.
I mean, listen, he's a really good football player. He is, but I know me personally, I've said all along, you can upgrade him.
Yeah.
You can upgrade that position, even upgrade it in the draft, and Adam Peters clearly sees that, and they got Debo in here. So they're going to get two for De'Ami Brown, technically. You
Yeah.
can't tell me that a Debo Samuel and a nice draft pick aren't significant upgrades over De'Ami
Oh
because
yeah.
that's a fact. They are. So you have to understand that a lot of these guys, Jeremy Chin, they weren't going to pay him that. There's no.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Like, what did they offer him? If it was 6.5 last year, he got, because I always
Excuse me.
say, like, the team you're coming from,
Hmm.
it's like 75 cents on the dollar, right?
Hmm.
They probably
Hmm.
expect you to give them a little more because you know them relationship and so forth. But he got 8 million. Like, what did Adam offer him?
I
Or what
think
was on the table?
I think I don't even know if it was anything on the table, to
Oh,
be
maybe
honest
that's
with
what it
you.
was. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
so I think the smart business, the way they're doing stuff is they're gonna let you test the market. You want to see what you're worth, fine. But guess what? They're gonna see what you're worth too. And if they
Exactly.
see that some team is willing to give you more than what they were wanting to give you, I mean, let's just put it out there. They were going to give him, 7 million, and this is my take on this. This isn't from anyone in the bill. How much do you want to win? Is
Mm.
is that extra $1 million that much more important for you that you're willing to go to a team that is going to be in a full rebuild with a 76-year-old coach? I mean,
Mm.
Pete Carroll's a Hall of Fame coach, one of the best to ever do it. We know
Mm.
that, Super Bowl winning coach.
Mhm.
But and I'm not wishing this on anyone, but will Pete Carroll be around for some of these guys' new contracts?
Mhm.
In the long term, as opposed to Washington, much younger staff. Already has a franchise quarterback in play. I,
Mhm.
I, I mean, how much do you want to win? So To some guys, it's about money. To some guys, it's to maximize exactly down to the penny how much they can get. I'm not saying that Jeremy did that, but I am saying that, sometimes you can take a little less than what another team offered you, if it means you're going to win. I've always said this: if you win and you win the big one, just ask Saquon and those guys in Philly now. They don't have to pay for a meal ever again in Philly.
Right.
Life will change for you. B Mitch, that's my dog, man. What's up, B? Brian and me talk about it all the time. I said, don't you ever get tired of wearing that Super Bowl ring? He said, hell no. I mean, it's always there, So that's my whole point. When you win, the money comes, man, but some guys chase the bag first.
Extensions. Before we get into Terry extension, I know Tunsil, I think it's 23.1 million this year and next year as far as base. I think he has a $10 million bonus at some point this year. Does he play on that? Because from his reaction, he was like, well, Adam already knows what I want to do. They already know my position, this, and that. I was like, that's interesting to say.
Yeah, but I think they probably let him know. Let us get our team together first before we start re-upping people and extending people, because the first person who's going to get extended is going to be Terry. And I'm sure Terry's not anywhere right now thinking, man, I got to get my money. They're trying to win, and all that stuff will take care of itself. If Laramie Tunsil comes in and mauls people like people think he will, like he should, he's going to get paid, and he'll be paid accordingly. And the one thing you can say about left tackles are they age differently from guards. Guards and centers get beat up quickly. Their careers aren't as long as left tackles. But when you look at those tackles around the league, shout out to my boy Morgan Moses. That's my guy. He's got another contract on another team. But those tackles, they normally play longer. Trent Williams, 36 years old, man, and still doing it. That's what I'm saying. That's just, it goes with the territory. So don't look at Laramie Tunsil like he's 30 and he's coming down the wire and he's got to get this money. Nah, man, he's getting ready to get another huge deal in probably a year or two.
Yeah, because I always say, like, elite left tackles play well into their 30s.
Well, mid-30s.
Yep. Well into it.
Yep.
A couple more questions. The combine, right? Is there anyone that kind of, because somebody added me, asked me to ask you about James Pierce. I don't know why, but they just asked you about Pierce. How do you feel about me? Like, thank you. Like, I thought it was me. Like, I have so much to say about him. Why?
So listen, man. And I said this, and it wasn't to take a shot at the kid. Never met the kid a day in my life. Never shook his hand. Never looked him in the eyes as a man. Never. But I saw something that I did not like, and once he ran that blazing 40 time, I was sitting right there. Once he ran the 40 time, it was something to behold. I literally turned to a colleague of mine next to me and was like, damn, we don't see the 40 times right away, unless you have your own clock on you. And I was just like, I know I just saw something special. I've been there for John Ross. I've been there for Worthy. I've been there for all the Blazers. But when I saw that, it reminded me a little bit of Chop Robinson when he ran and it was blazing. But this guy was faster than that. And I'm like, damn, this is crazy. Well, as soon as he ran that, when he, turned to come back up the field, a lot of the other guys who were waiting to run or the other group that was sitting to wait before they got ready to warm up, guys were running to him like, hyped, wanting to chest bump him and, dap him up, stuff like that. And this kid was just kind of like, what's okay, whatever, he had a high five here, but he kept moving, he kept walking, like he didn't stop to like, thank some people for thanking him or coming up to congratulate. He just kept walking through everybody. And it just, I literally told my colleague, what's up with that? That's what I told him. I said, what's up? Now, this guy, my colleagues, Colin Griffin, that's my guy. He's a great draft analyst. And so I told him, I said, what's up with that? Did you see that? he said, "Oh," he said, "Well, that's the knock on him, character." And I said, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Yeah, that's the knock on Pierce. Some people say he has some character issues." And I had never heard that a day of my life because
Yeah, it's my
I didn't
first time.
follow them. Yeah, but that was the first time I heard that. I saw that three, four, five other places right after that
Wow.
that had surfaced. But I know what my eyes saw, and to me, that did kind of rub me the wrong way. So it was just like, oh wow, I saw something that makes sense, I guess. So, not saying that this guy's an idiot or he's a bad kid. I'm not saying that at all
Yeah.
because guys are living their dream out, especially at the combine.
Hmm.
But I hope and I hope and I hope and I hope and pray that next time a situation like that comes up, show some humility in it.
Yeah.
Just don't walk through guys. They're there to dap you up and congratulate you, man. You should be hyped too that you just ran that.
Right. And I really believe in the commander thing that they're setting around. I mean,
Oh,
it's even going to the business side because Josh Harris, like he literally used that to tell people we're not going back to the name, like at his end of the year press conference, because there's a commander like he that. So I really believe in that, and I think that's part of it. Also,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
the way they treat everyone in the organization now. Look, man, even for us on on Wednesday, they would bring pizza in and stuff like that. But on Thursday, the chef cooked for us.
oh, that's
Chef
amazing.
Connor, shout out to him. He would cook for us in the media, and never, ever, ever, ever in all my years has that happened. So, just down to the way they're trying to treat people, it's totally different, man. It's a positive buzz, and I think for some of my colleagues who are just so used to the negativity,
Mhm.
it even shocked some of them that they had to conform, more than the team did. They had to make sure, okay, it's all love up here now, so that's how it goes.
You have any favorite players from the combine that you would like for the Commanders to take a snap at?
Yeah, there's on each side of the ball. I like the kid Amarion Hampton from North Carolina. I don't think he's going to be there for them, so I think the kid Sampson, from
Okay.
running back from Tennessee.
Yeah.
He's a blazer, and I think he would be just a nice punch, in the running back room because they need speed in that backfield. They really do, and I think that's the one thing that may be holding the offense up from really exploding. So he could be a guy that you possibly could get late in the second round, maybe even in the third round, but they don't have that pick now. So second round you can do that. But then on the defensive side of the ball, the guy that I really like quite a bit is Derek Harmon. He's a
Okay.
defensive lineman
Yeah.
from Oregon, transferred from Michigan State. And this guy, he's a game wrecker. His comp is Chris Jones, so and that's not me giving them that comp. That's the guys that break those guys down. That's
Yeah.
the comp they've given them, and I see it all day. And I think he would be a nice addition across Washington's defensive line because he could play edge, and then you can move him inside from time to time. But he's a disruptor, and they need that.
Yeah. Last question. Is there any player on this team that you would pull out and say, you know what? I need you to lock in this offseason to the playbook, to the weight room, to conditioning, to training, the way you're eating, I need you to lock in. Is there any player on this team that you would have to do that?
Yeah, I would. I would do that with Duran. I think when Duran's motivated, his
Yeah.
game is incredible, really. And Duran's a great guy. I mean, we joke all the time. He's got all the nice cars, and every
Right.
time I'm doing my stand up on in front of the bubble after practice, he's coming out to leave in one of the nice cars. You can't hear him though, because a lot of them are electric. I've never seen an electric Rolls Royce, but he
That's
has one.
crazy. Yeah.
But he's such a nice guy. You want him to be nasty sometimes. And
Yeah.
when he played like that in that contract year, he was something, man.
Mhm.
So they need that. They really do. If he's gonna be around, he's got to show that he can produce at the level he's getting paid at. Because if not, he won't be here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lake. Lake Lewis joining us, NFL Washington Commanders. Insider, the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, I think iHeartRadio, everywhere. Anything I miss, let the people know how they can follow you.
Yeah, man, we've got some stuff coming up. I'm also a contributing writer over at heavy.com, and
Okay.
you can go to sportsjourney.com. The show's also, my podcast has also been picked up on CBS Radio.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
yeah, man, it's a lot. Also insider for CBS and Richmond TV television station.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Oh,
of
okay.
course, ABC back home in DC. So, yeah, man, it's a
Work,
lot of
work.
stuff. And there's a couple big ones coming, too. So, I just try to stay as busy as possible, man. Keep pushing the brand.
Can't wait. Yeah, I'll be going Sports Journey for my man Serge.
That's what's up. That's right. That's right. The shooter.
Yes, right. There you go. Thank you so much again. Thanks to everyone out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I know your time is very valuable, for you to spend it with us. We absolutely appreciate it. Remember, do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.